Okay, so I have a question for you, Matt. 15 years ago, 15 years ago, the powers that be told all the children coming up in college that they need to learn to code. Okay, so they spent 4 years, 6 years, 8 years learning to code. Now it's 15 years later, and AI is coding. And they're telling everyone they should learn to prompt. Why should I believe the powers that be that I should learn to prompt if they're going to change the game on me in another 5 years?
All right, I have an answer for you.
What is that answer?
It's the same thing. Why do kids go to college today, right? If we're all so smart and AI is going to take over the world and we don't need to do anything and nobody, it's the experience of understanding why you do things. Like the cameras that you have in front of us recording right now, right? You just didn't set up cameras. You knew kind of like the lighting. You knew like the differences between frame rates. You knew sort of like the ability to put them at an angle and work with the ways that the cameras work that are physical. Like to me, it's not a bad idea to start to understand things from scratch. It's almost like in college, the first thing you do is you get an 8mm film kit and you start chopping up film because it begins this knowledge base of the basics of how things work. So I think it's a fundamentalist way to approach the market. And certainly you could just go right to whatever the next vibe coding thing it is. But I think it's the experience. And you don't have to be super Mr. Expert, but I think you need to have a gradual understanding of why things work and how they work so that you can physically understand where it came from and why it's important. That's my answer.
All right. It's kind of an acceptable answer. I mean, I kind of hear what you're saying, but you come at it from the perspective of someone that's been through a couple of generations now, and coming up when you did, that's what you did, right? That's how I learned. I used to go out early in the days. I used to go rent the equipment from the public access, local, right?
Yeah.
To go and get that experience. I'm like, I want to do this. I ended up working in television before I did. I'm like, let me learn some things on my own. And to some extent, yes, there's a lot of people out there that are using devices to kind of learn and frame and all of that, using the video example, right? But if you're born into this, and that's why I was saying kids in college, you know, you just sent off your kids over to college, I saw that, right? What are they telling them right now? Right, and this affects our business, because who's the next round of people coming up that are going to enter this business? Is the ones entering college right now, right? Or in the middle of college or exiting college right now. So what are they telling them? Become a great prompter, right? Because there is no more equipment, like you said, to go learn. There is and there isn't, right? You have your phone, right? And the real video files will go out and get a real camera, right?
Yep.
But the ones that are like, I want to try it, but I don't know if I'm really there yet, it's all gonna be virtual or you know, an AI prompt. I would assume it's at one point you're gonna prompt your camera to do your work. So again, like my point of my question was initially when I asked you that was, what are we chasing here? And what I mean by that is, I'm not saying I'm not for progress. I love progress. Advancement's fantastic. Learning technology is always going to keep evolving, and so on and so forth, right? But this is the first type of technology, right? When social media, when we first met, you know, and I saw social media in 2009. What got me about it was you took something that was going on since the beginning of time, where people are just conversing with each other and doing it digitally. I was like, oh. Creating communities online. That was new at the time of 2005, 2006. It made sense. What's new about AI, and with businesses, talking to my business owners that are kind of like, I'm not sure right now. What's different is you're talking about upending their business models. This social media was just a natural conversational tool that had a natural bonding with marketing, right? You know, you talk to people on the train, and then you read the newspaper back in the day, and that's life. Now you don't talk to anybody on the train, and you talk to everybody on social media, but it's still kind of the same thing. What we're talking about with AI is, hey, you know, I can get you an AI agent that can handle this work for you. I can get you this to do that. I can get you this to do that. That's new. And I think even myself that's in this business, I'm still trying to see, I could see when I started doing social media 10 years ago, I saw what was going on right now. What's happening like pre-AI, but the next 10 years I saw clearly. I'm like, this is what's going to happen, and it happened. The thing with AI is that I think a lot of people, not the early adopters, not the I'll try anything new and I'm going to go for it, but the majority of business owners are like, hold on. You know, I have a business model. I have a secretary, a front desk person, right? They need this to feed their kids. You have that element going on, right? It's a real thing. You can't poo-poo it. It's true. Like, okay, great. I can fire everyone that works for me, right? And now I'm going to feel like a douchebag, right? Because I fired them because I got these AI agents. How do you push through that? How do you get that, you know, and that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to understand because I can't see it yet. And I think this is a time to kind of maybe simply explain to everyone what you're seeing, because I think you see it better than I do.
Oh, I do.
You do. You do. So what is it?
There's two things. And I try and make this simple because I go through these conversations. I go through this conversation so often. It's almost daily. In fact, you saw me having a conversation, right? Just before we got on this podcast. I was talking to a client. We're consulting them. We're helping them with, you know, explaining that they need to help their clients with getting better at what the clients do, because they need to explain how it would support their business. What generally is happening is that the knowledge base of what we all know is being easily adapted and placed into these agents, meaning a lot of situations where conversations that are happening online or in person, right, they're starting to become relevant because there's so much time saved. And this is where the big problem that people can't get their heads around. There's so much time saved when all the repeated conversations that happen in businesses happen all day. What's the price? How do I do X? What do I do with Y? What do I do with Z? How do I get to B? How do I get to C? How do I do all these things that happen? Like thousands of conversations happen in business every single day. Those are the things that are starting to get replaced. And I'll give you an example so you can understand it. You know, we work with Dr. Jones. Mm-hmm. Dr. Jones is a very exuberant GLP-1 coach. Yes. He has thousands of comments on his posts every day that need to be responded to about GLP-1. Should I take it if I'm diabetic? What if I'm overweight by 50 pounds? What if I eat nuts and macadamia nuts? Does it impact my GLP-1? There's literally like more questions than anyone could possibly imagine if he just puts up one post of a YouTube video or TikTok. 50,000 people see it, and hundreds of people, and he's got multiple channels running 3 different languages. I mean, there's all sorts of things. So collapsing those questions and answering those questions without him. He's got 24 VAs answering right now for him to just try and keep up with the demand, because those questions eventually turn into, hey, I think I'm ready, right? So there's a time consideration of conversational structure, whether it's text-based or voice-based. Now, I went to a dear friend's location the other day who's let's just call it the internet's the devil person, right? So someone who does not want, this is the second example, by the way. So he would not be impressed about anything ever. We would not care at all about anything technology or technology based. Why? Because he's 68 years old or whatever. It doesn't matter. Now, however, one thing does matter to him. When he leaves his business, guess what happens? His phone goes to where? A voicemail. Or worse, it doesn't get answered at all because they forget to put the call forwarding on, right? So I cloned his voice, his actual voice, cloned his voice with AI. Literally, you could not tell the difference between his voice. And I said, would it be okay if you answered the phone after hours? And he goes, what are you talking about? And I pressed a button on my phone and started talking to him, his AI clone, and asking questions, and actually making jokes with the AI related to his business. So in that case, he's very interested because what we're doing now is making a better proof of business model because we're actually creating what I would consider an extra level of resource that he never had before. And he would never hire or spend the money to hire someone to do the overnights and the weekends and the holidays and the times when the phone can't be picked up. So now that the phone gets picked up by him, meaning it's his voice, and by the way, this freaked him out a little bit because he's like, wow, that really sounds like me. I'm like, yeah, we don't have to have it your voice if you don't feel like it, but it proves a point that the two business models are saving resources and creating value where money would normally be needed to hire an employee, where it's really an easy thing to implement. So that's just two examples. There's lots of examples. And I think what your original question was, and I understand, which is, what are we going to do with all this stuff? Where does it end up? Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who are like me who understand that what's going to happen is that the glasses that people are talking about are a passive way of saying, well, now we can start to use what they call AGI, which is the next level of AI, which is, it's generated information that you're going to have now in your glasses if you want. But I think it's going to be very quickly adapted to a either interactive format right into the neocortex or a baseball hat or some sort of thing that you can wear that will do transpondence. Because it's going to come so quickly that this will become a thing where we're going to be able to now interface directly with the AI through the ability to think with it. And that, I think, in the next 5 years is going to be where this is all going to end up. And we're not even going to talk about prompting because there will be no prompting. There'll be no agentic AI, which we're doing today. It will be, I think of it, and then there will be assistance. And I don't know if anybody really realizes this, but this is really what most people think is the singularity.
Yes.
So the singularity is when we do engage AI at a thinking level. And that is coming. There are a lot of people who are signed up already to have, people have RFID chips in their wrists now.
Yep.
That's a real big thing. But the real thing is, transducem or transmagnetic interface with thinking is kind of where it ends up, because then you're starting to go, okay, what is going to really happen here is that we are going to start to do this at a multiple of not just 10x or 100x. It's going to be 1,000x difference. So I don't know if that's going to happen like a landslide, but I will tell you the glasses are coming very quickly, and those are just going to be a small snippet, just like the phone will suddenly disappear from people's hands because it won't be necessary anymore.
Sure.
Because that's sort of like a physical thing. It's almost like back in the day when we had BlackBerries, no one would ever have thought that you would get rid of keys on a BlackBerry.
Yeah.
So it's almost the same thing as this prompting and the engineering of trying to put together like where we are in the status of AI is more about where it goes is really more into intelligence of helping businesses move faster, quicker, and spend less on stuff. So,
yeah, and I hear what you're saying as far as the businesses. I can totally see multiple areas where it totally enhances the business, makes it more efficient, quicker, better. I get that 100%. Where I kind of, it gets blurry for me, and I know about the singularity, and if anybody watching this doesn't understand what that is, that's when AI takes off on its own. There is no more prompting. It is a brain that functions on its own. That's the singularity, right? And many people, and this is where I'm going with this, that have been going at this for years now. The top players in this field have openly said and admitted, we really don't know what happens when we hit singularity. We don't, right? How does that, will it infect all of the digital devices. What happens at the singularity? You're talking about a, I don't want to be, how can I say this? A godlike brain, right? That's what you're talking about. Like that has consumed so much information now that it's starting to think on its own and doing its own thing, right? And that's where it gets fuzzy for me. I'm like, okay, so where do we come into play? I hear a lot of people, the Elon Musk and everyone else that are spearheading this, the OpenAI and all of these big players sitting there and saying, we're going to need, when they talk about AI, I hear multiple times, and I'm getting back to why this affects the business, is like, oh, we're going to need universal basic income. Why? Well, because AI is going to do everything, and everybody's going to have nothing to do. So how are they going to live and supplement themselves? And the business people that may not understand AI but are learning about it and focusing on it, and the people I've talked to in the business community are saying that's what they're saying. It's like, okay, so what happens now then? I fire everybody. And listen, and what's crazy about this is that we're not, what I'm talking about, what Matt's talking about, this ain't 15 years away.
No, it's very soon.
This is 2-3 years away. Right. The next big jump, you're going to see these massive jumps, and one of those jumps might be into the singularity, which I believe is already existing in some way, shape, or form in some of these labs. It's just they have found a way to control it. But point is, when it officially hits singularity and the world knows about it, right? Where does that position? And as a business owner, in the business community, we always tell people get ahead of something, but otherwise you're going to get behind it.
Yeah, there's some constraints though that aren't being addressed. Right, you've got infrastructure, you've got power, there's a lot of things that need to be worked out. So yes, I agree. I think that's what I'm saying. Like within 5 years, I think by 2030, we'll look at this podcast or we'll come back and we'll say, you were right, but it was different because of this, right? So sure. There'll be some level of infrastructure needed. It reminds me there's three different very important things that happened in the last 20 or 30 years, right? The first thing was we went off the gold standard, right? And that changed everything from a paradigm of how things were put into place in a monetary level, right? This means that you could print, right? So that's a whole thing. The second thing was with telecommunications. When they broke up the Bell system, that was in the 80s, that changed the whole paradigm of competition in telecommunication, and that created a entire level of entrance into this space where Global Crossing went out and laid cable across the bottom of the ocean, and now everything's connected and the fiber's everywhere, and then that started the internet boom. So there was those two things. But now what the issue that or the thing that is needed to be thought about is, look, we've got NVIDIA, you've got AMD, you've got Intel, you've got all these literally we're just creating as much possible physical attributes of switching systems, which are doing all the calculations for AI. We're literally hitting physical limits of like what you can build, how fast you can build it, and then how do you plug it in? Like those things are now there's going to be some sort of constraint that needs to be removed in order for that to scale, because you're literally at a point where you don't have enough physical capability to build past where we are in a generation because of the limits of literally physical dynamics. So
like power.
Yeah. Again, so by kids, if you're listening, Vertiv, which is the data center and power cooling history, that's a great stock, by the way. They probably didn't do well today because of some of the challenges. But anyways, the point I was saying is that there are so many things to figure out in order to get to the levels that we're talking about, where the UBI and all this crap. There's that won't happen until the physical things are figured out, and people don't realize that that's the constraint we're living with, which is we don't have enough capability as a society to even power any of this.
So, and they call it something programming. So the Matrix, right. They used humans as power. That was the thing. They kind of saw it coming, right? They did see it coming. I mean, it's a fiction, of course. But if you don't know and you're watching this, and we've been spending the last 5 minutes talking about this, it takes massive massive amounts of power that we physically, like Matt said, don't have right now to power this to get to the singularity, or at least to maintain a singularity. Maybe we may have touched it, but to keep it takes a lot of energy. I mean, and it kind of makes sense in a simple way, is that you're basically powering up a massive brain that is a brain that is encompassing all of our brains. So to think at that level, you're going to need a ton of energy. It's kind of like when when you're hungry, when you're working hard and you're thinking hard and you get hungry and you got to eat because you got to feed the brain. This is what's going on in AI. AI is like a human. It's like a human. It still has the same aspects that humans have, right? Power for AI, food for humans, right? You need these things, and like Matt said, you need a football field is not even big enough to what we're saying as far as power. You're talking about massive land, like a quarter of a state. Like take Maine, make Maine the official power hub of all AI in America, and maybe that won't even be enough to take the whole freaking state and create some kind of power source. But you know what I'm saying? And it's stuff like this and these conversations that me and you are having right now that I know when a lot of times when I talk to business owners and I'm getting the same look. I get the same look that I got when I was pitching social media in 2009. They cross their eyes at me and they're like, "You mean Facebook, that thing my daughter's on with her, they're chatting all day?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's a powerful marketing tool." And then I came around to it. Same thing with AI. And to be honest, to be fair, I may know more than most, but when I talk to you, I'm like that. I'm like, right? So I can explain it to people that are at least less educated to me on it and kind of give them an idea of where it's going. And then you kind of come to me and you're like, well, you need this, that. I'm like, whoa.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
And so it's so many levels, like you just said.
So we could put this into a cycle, and that's what I think you should think about. Think of this as we're at some point in this technology cycle, we're 10 years away from the next cycle. So AI will be a cycle for the next 10 years, right? Something will happen which will cause the new cycle or downfall and then a new cycle. Perhaps it might be fusion, where we'll be able to create small fusion reactors that will power, right? And that would solve a lot of the problems, right? That's a maybe. And maybe the AI figures out how to use some resources that are, easily available to create these fusion reactors that would create power enough to do this stuff. But I think you got 10 years now of this scaling operation. I'll take it back to the telecom. 86 or so was when the lift, or 84, somewhere around there. I can't remember the exact time. When AT&T was broken up, that whole telecom thing went through from that till roughly 2000 let's just say 2000, right? Let's just say it was whatever. It was about 20 years, right? So we're 15 or 20 years, somewhere around there, where it started with a breakup of a monopoly to the collapse of the dot-com bubble in 1999 or 2000. So it was whatever, how many years that was. So we sort of started this whole thing, and you can kind of picture this. It started like in 2020, like at COVID, right? Mm-hmm. So now we really started doing like this different living style. It all kind of now is starting to cascade, where it's like, okay, well, now everybody works from home. Now they're all hybrid. Now with the Zoom. Now it's, we're getting into the more deeper challenges of AI, which is now what do we want to do with it? And I think that you've got like 10 years here. And I guess the question is, going back to the original symposium, which is like, what should we learn? What should we know? What should we be thinking about? Right. And the answer is it's pretty much, it's elegant to some degree, but it's what you're interested in. Like some part of this technology, you've got to be interested in some of it. So if you can take one thing away from this, find something you like about the technology and invest some time into it. You don't have to become an AI savant or no prompting or no, this vibe coding, which I think is kind of a funny way to put it. But that sort of realm, and I think in the AI world of business where we operate, what I'm interested in doing is giving people the opportunity to tell me, hey, I need help with this, and see if we can do it with some virtual assistants. And so that's it.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, like how I've been using it here at Big Mount Studio is, these nights I have somebody come in, I'm interested in doing a podcast, I'm not sure what they want to do. They email me a whole bio of who they are, what they do. I upload it to chat. And I'm using it very basically, but I found something that I like, and I upload it to ChatGPT, and I go, give me 3 formats, podcast formats, and let me look at where we can go with this. And it's a jump off point creatively for me, and it's like collaborating with someone, right? It's pulling, and they're generally okay. You got to tweak a little bit, and I guess the same goes for any business. You own a med spa, you own a hardware store, you own a whatever, a plumbing, you know. Hey, I'm a plumber. I do X amount. I work in this part of I work in northern New Jersey. I'm looking to be more efficient, in my bookings. Give me a layout. Give me a plan. Give me a strategy. Even something as basic that. Imagine Google with the brain. For people that are just starting to understand this, that's really what it is. It's Google with the brain. Google was just kind of search based off keywords and so forth, and now there's algorithms, but that's generally what it was. Now, Google thinks for you. Right? I mean, and they have what's their AI system? Gemini, right? And Gemini's there. What Gemini is really good at is image, videos. That they've really spearheaded that end of AI. I know from a marketing standpoint, the last couple of months, we've been rolling AI images into the, and it hasn't been working. And I'm trying to understand why, because there's multiple things going on. Yes, there's an audience, and yes, maybe some of them are a little savvy enough to understand they're kind of turned off by, but I don't think that's what it is. I actually think, and this maybe you can guide me here, I think that the platform algorithms are kind of downranking shitty AI. Like they're trying to help it along when it comes to creatives. Like, hey, listen, that's horrible. Everyone know it's horrible. And if we keep putting that out, this will never go anywhere. It will not be adopted, and we're going to move on. Right? And I think, and I've noticed that at least in the paid world, that I've rolled in maybe I would say about 50 AI images, ones that I thought looked good. Ones that I thought from my eye, I'm like, okay, this looks like a real person. None of them have taken off. None of them. And for multiple kinds of campaigns. So I have a big sample size against it. So I could say there's something going on here. And that, to my point, is I think, and it's kind of weird how, because all of these, the Facebooks of the world, I think I read that Mark Zuckerberg this year alone put like $40 some odd billion into their AI development, right? So there's something going on in the background. I guess what I'm trying to get at here, it would be great to get for I guess some of these bigger players to come out and talk with everyone. I think that would help the business community a bit and just give them more. I know they have events, and I know they have whatever con and that con and this con and all sorts of conferences and all of that, but it's just so like all over the place right now. And to come back to the point of, you're out there and you were having the call today with, one of the clients that you're consulting, and you said, I heard you in the meeting, I was setting up the set here, it'd be nice just to ask the people what the hell they want, right? They were having a conversation about certain things that had to get, certain people down a funnel and get them paying for work. And I guess stuff like that AI can do, like to your point of, responding and talking to people, but a human can do that. And I heard them, you kind of throw in different things about AI, and they would get quiet. And I guess they're kind of digesting it and trying to understand it in their head. They're like, all right, they're trying to. And I guess from a business owner standpoint, uncertainty is the devil. And I guess that's the thing with AI right now. You're there, and you're certain, like you said, find something you like and just try to work it from there. Same thing happened with social media. When social media popped, it was Facebook, it was Twitter, it was this, it was that, and the business community was overwhelmed. And what I tell them is pick a platform and own it. Don't worry about the other ones. Find one, build a community, and rock on, right? And I guess to kind of wrap this all up is when it comes to AI, and I'm one of the ones that are still questioning it. You are right. I am finding one thing I like to use about it, and just kind of ease into it from there, because, like Matt said, there's a lot of things that have to happen for it to really take off. It's not scalable right now because of power and a litany of things that just we don't physically have, and there's no resources for it. So ChatGPT, get on it, get the newest version. If you're a creative, like I said, I think it's fantastic. You can collaborate with it. It's like collaborating with the world, right? It's pulling from all over the place and getting me good stuff. But it's really, and what I've also learned on ChatGPT, basic usage. If you don't know how it works, if you haven't done it yet, and I have a bunch of people that haven't, you have little chats, right? But it learns from each chat, and the more you talk about a subject, the more it gets well versed in it. So I started a conversation months ago with Big Mount Studio, all the things, questioning, answering, and now when I talk to it about Big Mount Studio, it knows. It's like somebody that's been working here with me side by side. That's crazy, right? And sometimes it'll ask me, "Hey, remember when you said that? Don't you want this version of it to apply that?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, you're right. I totally forgot. I was talking about that 2 weeks ago with you." So it's wild. I think from a kind of customer interface and working with, and hearing on the Go high level systems and hearing the phone calls, a lot of times, yes, a lot of them are fooled. Your friend, he put his voice there, and 5 out of 10, half of the people were like, "Oh, cool, whatever." They talk to them, but the other half are still kind of like, "Hey, I know this ain't real." You hear the messages back, "Hey, I want to talk to someone," but I guess that's been going on for years anyway. "Hey, I don't want to press 2. I just want to talk to someone." "Hey, I don't want to talk to a fake person. I just want to talk to someone."
I want my horse.
I want
Why do I need a car?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you don't want to sound like your grandparents back in my day. Blah 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 blah.
Well,
But like I said, this particular technology is societal changing, right? Every other, you're talking about the telecoms.
Yeah.
Yes, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
But you know what? They broke up, and the 10,000 people that worked at AT&T all got jobs at the other places that opened up when they had competition. So, it doesn't matter. They just moved people around. What you're talking about here is technology where it actually upends the workforce. Not saying that could be a horrible thing. It could be a great thing. But not knowing where it goes because we don't have what we have and we can't see what this looks like scaled out or remotely close to it, I think it's that uncertainty.
Yeah, we're at a 1991 just understanding what the internet meant, right?
Yes.
So that's what I was trying to say. When the telecoms broke up, it created innovation. And what that did was it made people lay cables. And when they laid cables, because they could start a big global crossing, as I said, was one of the biggest ones that laid all this cable that today still is used because of the fiber. But what that did was it allowed the networks to be able to be used for internet. And we're at the point where AI is sort of like the beginning of the new internet in the 90s. Like nobody really knows where it's going to go, but we know something's happening, like this thing called email that back in the days in 92, 93, 94. Okay, now I'm getting my discs for AOL. I kind of get it. We can get on. We're going to go through these first 4 or 5 years. I said this is like a 10-year cycle where I think by 2035, we're going to have some very strange things that are going to happen to the business and the economy because we will be at the point where the AI thing will be done and there'll be something completely different. Like, as you said, like maybe that's when UBI hits or something where, we've gotten to a certain level where there's so much stuff being done. But I think I'd like to predict tomorrow about just what I want to have for lunch. So I'm not.
I know, right? It's so crazy. Like I can't exactly. I don't even know what I'm gonna do this weekend, and I'm worried about the future and all that goes along with it and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm excited about it and I'm scared about it. Right? I'm excited because I like advancement. This is what we do, right? I heard in my world and the creator world and stuff like that. I watched an interview with Spike Lee the other day, and he's like, we used to go to NYU. Not because it was NYU and it was prestigious, because we wanted free access to the equipment. That was the whole gimmick, like you were saying before earlier in the podcast. You get the equipment, you go play with things. But then he's like, now you have a phone. You have no excuses. You can create. It doesn't matter, right? And I guess that's kind of what AI is going to do.
Yeah.
It's going to My question about AI is, I know that power is an issue. Do you think that AI can figure out its own power issue?
Well, that's what I said.
You think that's where it's going to go?
I think that's what's going to change in the next 10 years. I think that's the big catalyst because all the data centers in the world, you can't plug them in, right? So that's what I would wrap on is that, yeah, I think in 10 years we'll have a different technology for power. And I think that's probably the single most problem of all problems right now. Because guess what? Who gets to control the power? Right?
That's a century-old question.
Right.
That is a century-old question. He who controls the power controls the world.
Yeah.
So I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of Westworld, and in Westworld, all this AI was just so the real rich and elite can live forever, basically have their consciousness put in, and to some extent, there's part of me that keeps I go, are we getting all pushed into this because friggin' Gates and Elon and all of them just want to live forever, and this is all just for fun for us to chase our tails while they figure that out. But who knows? Anyway, test it out, try it. I don't want to scare you away. We're just having an open, real conversation here about what you're having probably on your own with your friends, your business, your associates, and so forth. Yeah, man. Cool.
Hopefully that made you think a little bit.
I think, yes. And don't worry, in 10 years, you won't have to think no more.
That's right.